2021. Good morning, everyone. Good morning.
Yeah, I know.
Don't let them hurt us back.
Hope not.
I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Lee County Board of County Commissioners. Today is August 1st, 2023, and the time is 9:31. Let's begin this morning by rising for the for the invocation and then the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to call Father Charles Cannon from St. Hilary's Episcopal Church to the podium to lead us in the invocation. Good morning.
Good morning. Can't do it without the prayer.
Amen.
Where did it go? It disappeared. All right, I think we have to go on. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we invoke your name at this meeting of the County Council of Lee County, Florida. We ask you to be with those who offer reports, be with those who ask questions, be with those who propose new business opportunities for this beautiful county. Most of all, give us clear heads, strong hearts, and the ability to recognize what's right and what's wrong for this county. Especially be with the commissioners as they do the hard work of representing the different areas of the county. And be with the staff who have to race around meeting the needs of all of us in this room. Most of all, let us go out of here after this meeting with renewed excitement for living in this county. In God's holy and gracious name, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Well, now's probably a good time to ask that everybody silence their cell phones, please. And you know what? I'll check mine as well just to make sure. Yep, we're on silent. Good deal. You know, it's funny as you're on your way out of the chambers today, take a look at the sign on the door. There apparently was an old rule in the old days that they would charge you $5 for a cell phone ringing during this, and it would be contributed to your favorite charity. So anyways, it's a funny sign. Check it on your way out. But thank you very much for being here at the Lee County Commission meeting today. I'd like to begin this morning with our ceremonial presentations. We have our monthly Pet of the Month, and I'd like to recognize Commissioner Pendergrass for that presentation.
Great, thank you, Chairman. If I could have Animal Services, Karen and Pablo come forward. We have a special guest now. Say Prince is with us today. And thank goodness we have a full house for all of our great Lee County employees today. Maybe someone here could see Prince and take him home with them today. And we have a lot of animals right now that needs homes. So if you get a chance, check our website out and you'll see all the adorable kittens and pups that there that needs homes. And Karen, I think there's some special events going around the national stage for the adoptions.
We do. Actually, today is Dogust, which means it's Prince's birthday as well as all shelter dogs. It's national, recognized as national birthday for all shelter dogs. So it is his birthday. So if you want to adopt him, it'd be a great birthday present. And it is Clear the Shelters Month with NBC, which means all dogs are $20 right now and cats are $10, and always adopt one, get a feline friend at no additional charge. And then on August 26th is the event day for Clear the Shelters, when all adoption fees are waived. Always a fun day. So come on out for that. And, you know, like you said, we are quite full. So check out our website, leelospets.com. Come give all our shelter dogs a birthday present. We did have a party hat for him, but he did not like that party hat at all. He thought it was a chew toy, and he's not happy with me now.
I noticed he really took an attraction to our new county manager.
Yeah.
So no pressure, Dave. But I think the
gift.
first meeting Roger had 10 years ago, he adopted a dog. So just no pressure, sir. I'm just letting you know.
I mean, we wanted to bring you a gift, Dave. So you're welcome. Thank
So
you.
again, thank you, and I hopefully everybody watching today and everybody in the audience has passed on the good word of what we have at our domestic services, and hope someone come out and adopt.
We do have quite a few bunnies right now as well, I believe.
Right. And I think you, the sheriff's here, and I know the other day the sheriff's department recovered a couple of puppies that were stranded, and I don't know they got adopted yet. I know they.
German Shepherd puppies, and they all did get adopted. Actually, I believe 2 deputies did adopt 2 of them. So
Oh, good.
yes.
Thank you very much. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Pendergrass. Thank you, Sheriff, for all you do for the animals as well. All right, let's begin. At this time, I'd like to ask the commissioners to go to the front of the podium, and we're going to do our quarterly length of service awards. Mr. County Manager, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you. I'd like to ask Victoria Abus to come up and present the awards.
Good morning. I'm Victoria Abus from Lee County Human Resources. I'm accompanied this morning by my colleague, Kristen Bristol, and County Manager Dave Harner. We have the distinct privilege this morning to present the Length of Service Awards to all eligible employees for Q2 of 2023. These awards collectively represent 1,605 years of service to Lee County government. So, yeah, that's awesome. So we do have a large group this morning. So for those employees present, as I call out your names, if you could please step forward to receive your coin from the county manager, and then greet the commissioners and the assistant county managers that are here. And then we'll remain off to the side. We'll take a group photo at the very end of the presentation. So as I call each group by years of service, I'll ask that everyone in that group congregates in the back, and we're going to go ahead and get started with our 5-year recipients. So first up, we have Jorge Alvarez Pino with Solid Waste. Melissa Baker, Library. Brittany Bremer, Parks and Rec. Andrea Browning, Utilities. Samantha Burkett, Library. Yes, sir. Of course. Of course. For all the recipients this morning, Commissioner Greenwell has had surgery on his hands recently, so he won't be able to shake your hand this morning, just so you know. All right, next up is Glenn Burnett with DCD. Brianna Criswell, Library. Travis Drapel, Solid Waste. Irene Gonzalez, Fleet Management. Matthew Graham, DOT Operations. Thomas Marcourt, DOT Engineering. Tyler Marzella, Parks and Rec. Keegan Millian, Public Safety. Butch Pollard, Utilities. Andrea Quiles, DCD. Landon Reed, DOT Operations. Sandra Ryan, County Manager. Samantha Sancho, Library. Nancy Santiago, Utilities. Deborah Schinkel, Library. Amber Shaner, DOT Tolls. Kamara Shanghai, Library. Sierra Strickland, Natural Resources. Pacorn, DOT Engineering. Estefania Toscano, Human and Veteran Services. Tyler Truex, Utilities. And our final 5-year recipient this morning, Matthew Wallace, Human and Vet Services. We'll ask that our 10-year recipients stand and move to the back. First up is Paula Allison with Human and Veteran Services. Colleen Chambers, DCD. William Diaz, DCD. Sean Fournier, Human Resources. Philip Galogli, Natural Resources. Matthew Hawkins, Library. Michael McDowell, Animal Services. Marcel Musa, Solid Waste. Ryan Nill, Public Safety. Nathaniel Toman, DOT Engineering. Lisa Weaver, Parks and Rec. Sylvia Zarco, DCD. And our final tenure recipient, Teresa Zilko, Utilities. We'll ask that our 15-year recipients please stand and move to the back. First up for 15 years of service is Rebecca Alexander, Natural Resources. Kelly Amadio, Library. Robert Carswell, DOT Traffic. Stephanie Parsons, Solid Waste. And our final 15-year recipient this morning, Deborah Paxton with Internal Services. We'll ask now that our 20-year recipients stand and move to the back. First up for 20 years of service this morning, Ricky Armstrong, Natural Resources. Travis Armstrong, Utilities. Cynthia Bantillo, Human and Veteran Services. Marco Dano, Facilities Construction and Management. Catherine Callis, Solid Waste. Rex Kennedy, Animal Services. Jeffrey McGovern, Utilities. Leonidas Sepulveda, Facilities and Construction Management. Daniel Smith, Utilities. Ursula Thomas, Parks and Rec. Our final 20-year recipient this morning is Donald Williams, DOT Traffic. Thank you for letting me know that. So Jorge Castro, I'm very sorry, but I've skipped over you with the 10 years. Please come up front and receive your reward for 10 years of service to Lee County. Thank you. Thank you for letting me know. All right, we're going to switch over to our 25-year recipients. If you're not already standing, if you would move to the back. First up, we have Douglas Busby with DOT Operations. Jacqueline Farley, DOT Tolls. Michael Nipper, DOT Operations. Ronald Partridge, DOT Operations. And our final 25-year recipient this morning is Ernesto Sanchez with DOT Traffic. All right, we're going to move on to our 30-year recipients this morning. Our first 30-year recipient is Greg Coggins with DOT Traffic. Sherry Matthews, Public Safety. Our final 30-year recipient this morning is Tony Vanover, Library. All right. Our final length of service recipient this morning with 35 years of service to Lee County is Candy Klein with DOT Tolls. So in just a moment, we're going to have everyone squeeze up, and you guys are going to have to squeeze this morning. You're going to have to get real cozy because there's a lot of y'all. So we're going to have you come around the front in just a minute. We'll take a nice group photo.
Three rows, you guys, 3 rows. Get it close and as friendly as possible.
Don't be shy. Come all the way here. If you want to meet the front, come more towards me.
Y'all gonna come up with us?
Sure, I'm good with that. I'm good with that.
Come on up.
Don't be shy.
No one else comes up, we'll get one on that side to even
There
it
you
out,
go.
all right?
We get some more squeezing.
I can hear the stories now. That's right.
Don't mind being in the front.
Yeah, for sure.
I know that, ain't no problem with that. Yes. Like my baseball story. That's why I tell them.
More squeezing.
They're amazing.
More squeezing.
All right, we're getting yelled at. Oh, man. Yeah. I'm gonna have a little fun. Someone way up there. Gotta tighten it up.
Sean, make it happen. How's that?
I don't know how you're gonna fit this group in.
How was it?
Well,
Push in a little bit more, guys. You guys want to.
They already ran them off over here.
Okay.
All right, let me give everybody a moment. Congratulations to y'all, that's awesome. Y'all staying?
Is that your only commissioner item today? That's your only thing you're bringing up? No problem.
Congratulations, Teresa. Yeah, but it's strong. That's your acronym. What's with that?
Great fun.
Oh, yeah, you'll be an operation.
1,000%.
I don't want to. I don't want to.
Good luck. If you need anything. Not that I would be willing.
Si no hubiera sido porque él lo dijo, no te lo hubieran llamado.
Ah,
Yeah, this one has that much time.
And I can't. Okay, thank you. Sure.
And the jab.
Yes.
Abuelita.
They're gonna have to get here early.
Jab.
Sorry, you're back to the clock. I'll say it. I can't reach it.
Means well, but we had an issue a couple years ago with this house with code enforcement stuff.
I'm not sure I would get, I'll be able to stay on top of it like normal.
Those are no from ours.
No, that's what's supposed.
Nice guy. Eric, Eric, I see it. Right? Oh, crazy. Great to spray roach. That's him, the third aisle in. He's ignorant too.
All right, let's do this. We're almost there. Yeah, it always feels so empty after everybody leaves then. Okay. All right, so as we get those doors closed, then we'll begin with the County Commission agenda, our business agenda. I'd like to first start by welcoming our new county manager, Dave Harner, on day one. Congratulations, Dave.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Board. I appreciate the opportunity.
We're all looking forward to working with you. Okay, our first item is to take up the recap. This is the time where we talk about any additions, deletions, or corrections that need to be made to the agenda. The only item that's been noted on the recap that needs action right now is to request by the county administration to defer public hearing number 3 to September 5th, 2023. So do we have a motion for that? Okay, motion from Commissioner Ruane and second from Commissioner Sandelli. Do you have any discussion on that deferral? Okay, does anybody want to speak in public comment on our motion to defer public hearing number 3 to September 5th? Okay, I see no public comment, so we'll come back to the board. Any further discussion? Are there any objections? No objections. That motion carries unanimously. Okay, let's move to the consent agenda. Commissioner Greenwell, do you have anything that you'd like to pull for discussion?
I do not.
Commissioner Pendergrass?
None.
Commissioner Sandelli and Commissioner Ruane. The only thing that I wanted to just move to the administrative agenda for visibility's sake, in a year after a hurricane, want to talk about the trim notice just before it goes out so that everybody knows what the plan is. So that'd be item C33. But other than that, then do we have a motion to approve the balance without C33? Okay, motions from Commissioner Ruane, seconds from Commissioner Sandelli. Do we have any, let's go to public comment on the consent agenda items then. Our first speaker would be Marsha Ellis. And everybody will have 3 minutes to speak on the consent agenda items.
Just give me a second so we can get the dock camera set up, if you don't mind, please.
Sure.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm speaking, first of all, on item 13, which is the noise ordinance. I'm calling attention to as it exists with the sound limits. And I'm very concerned because I live in an area. These are what are proposed, paying particular attention to the manufacturing or industrial, the increases there. There was a sound study done, and the highest decibel in the county is when I hear from my house. That's the 83.5, I'm sorry, 84.5, which is the highest reading in the county with the brick pavers. Those got better due to a whole series of complaints. Recently, the noise has been coming back. So there will be follow-up from the neighborhood, our neighborhood, Wild Blue, Mallard, et cetera, in regard to this, because this has been an ongoing issue with the noise pollution. We know that it's problematic when we mix industrial with residential, as we've seen with the recent ETO. And so that we have concerns about these incompatible land uses. Now I'm going to go to item 14.
I'm very happy to see that this South Florida water management supply is being addressed. I'm going to call attention to Goal 54 for conservation and helping manage our resources. This really deserves a lot of public input, and I'm hoping that those opportunities will be presented. We have spoken out defending Flint Penn at this location and participated in the hearing with Small Brothers. We want to continue to see that protected. There's a huge discrepancy between who is getting what amount of money on Alico Road. Private people are getting well below what the businesses are. So here we see 40,000 square feet, that payout being 500,000 versus a private landowner with 22,000 square feet at 43,000. That's really a big problem when we have that much of a span. I've spoken out regarding additional county lands being used for infrastructure in relation to the Kingston settlement. I'm also concerned about the eroding protections by removing the requirement for the FDP permit regarding dealing with the lime, and just allowing that to be a permissible or allowable use rather than getting a little more oversight and looking at those applications. And those are the consent agenda items that I've pulled.
Thank you, Ms. Ellis, for your comments. Our next speaker on consent agenda item, I believe it's 15, is William Joe Shopmiller. Morning.
Good morning. On the Article 15, the towers being taken down, I understand that other housing will be erected somewhere else for the low income. Has that been already decided where that's going to be? Because I know a few people that were at there that are homeless now. I don't know why the reason that we're at the towers, and we don't need any more homeless. We need to work to get the emergency, and then of course like the affordable housing like the towers was, and others, you know, the efficiencies and that, like Lois Healy does. So working together and using the funds for that as a continuum of care will better people's lives, everybody's. So you won't be stepping on people, or they won't be at the bus stops when we're trying to get a ride and that kind of thing. So everybody needs some type of shelter. We're not saying mansions, gold bosses, we're saying camps if need be until housing is built. So let's all work together. We'll get some funds together, you give us a price, and we'll work towards it. Thank you, God bless.
Thank you. All right, does anybody else wish to speak in public comment on any of the consent agenda items this morning? Okay, I see no further public comment then. We'll come back to the board. We had a motion from Commissioner Ruane and a second from Commissioner Sandelli to approve the consent agenda. Do we have any discussion from the board members? No? Mr. Hunter, do you have one question? Maybe a member of your staff could answer it. On the item 15, the SHIP item with Royal Palm Towers, have they identified where the new housing will be that's going to replace this?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll ask Mark Mora to answer that question.
Good morning, Commissioners. We do understand that the Housing Authority of City of Fort Myers does plan to replace all of those units. We don't have any specifics on where or when those units will be available.
Okay, City of Fort Myers Housing Authority. Okay, thank you very much. All right, any further questions or discussion? I see none. Are there any objections to the motion? All right, I see no objections. That motion carries unanimously. Mr. Hunter, please introduce item C33.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is to adopt the proposed FY 23-24 ad valorem rates for trim notice and set the public or the budget public hearing dates. And I'd like to ask Mr. Winton to respond to this item.
Morning, Pete.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is for the board to set the maximum property tax rates for fiscal year 23-24. These rates are what are included. The property appraiser sends out truth and millage notices to all property tax payers in August for them to see what other proposed tax bill will look like. These are the maximum rates. They can be decreased, can't be increased after this. we're recommending that the four main property tax rates that the county charges remain the same. And then the county has 45 municipal service taxing units where the neighborhoods vote in those units in order to pay for things such as street lighting as a common one, landscaping in their neighborhoods, road maintenance and paving, channel dredging, just to name a few things. Many of those have committees, citizen committees that you all appoint, and they approve the annual budget that results in those tax rates. We've sent you last week a memo for ones that are increasing by any kind of significant amount. What the reason for that is, a lot of it has to do with electricity rates, or some of the units are saving up in order to do a capital project, to do a road paving or a channel dredge.
Very good. I think that covers it, Mr. Whitten. Thank you very much. So, real quickly, the reason why I pulled this item was, in a year after you get hit with a terrible hurricane, a catastrophic storm like we experienced here in Lee County, I think there's a lot of questions about how do you pay for all the damage? How do you handle the finances in the wake of that? So the plan right now is to keep the major tax rates the same heading into next year, to go ahead and advertise that on the trim notice so everybody can see what the rates look like and what their tax bills will look like then. And then to obviously have a budget workshop this afternoon where we'll talk about how to budget that money, and then have the 2 public hearings in September where people can come and give us their comments on the budget. And so that's the plan right now. Pretty amazing that, we're working through trying to put together a budget in the wake of this hurricane and able to keep the tax rates the same as they were last year. So any comments, commissioners, before I take public comment on this item? No? Okay. At this time, I'd like to ask for public comment on item C33. Okay. I see no comments then. So I'll go ahead and close public comment. Oh, we do have one? Okay, come on forward. And if you could just state your name for the record, please.
Michael Peters.
Michael, good morning.
I live in Morse Shores, one of the oldest subdivisions in Lee County. And half our subdivision has fantastic drainage. The other half doesn't. And ironically, I don't think it had anything to do with the hurricane, except for the fact that the half that didn't, which is the northernmost portion, which borders the river, it took a lot longer for the water to evacuate after the fact. And we've had flooding issues that have been reported to the commission for over a decade.
Okay, I appreciate that. That's actually a good comment for the end of the meeting, but we'll
Okay.
take it now. But we're just looking for comments on the tax rate right now.
We'd just like it to be factored into the budget, and I can't be here this afternoon because I have a house I'm restoring.
Okay, I appreciate your comment then. All right, any further comments? Okay, I see none at this time. We'll come back to the board. Does somebody wish to make a motion?
So move.
Motion for approval from Commissioner Ruane, second from Commissioner Sandelli. Do we have any discussion on the item? Are there any objections? No objections, that motion carries unanimously. All right, Mr. Harner, please introduce item A1.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is to approve the purchase agreement for a new solid waste recycling facility, and I'd like to ask Robert Clemens to present the item.
Morning.
Morning, Commissioners. Robert Clemens, County Lands. This item before you is the request to approve a purchase agreement for $14.5 million to acquire 50 acres to accommodate a material recycling facility for solid waste. The purchase price is above the appraised value. However, this is the only parcel that we were able to find that would accommodate this operation and the size that it needed to perform that operation. The purchase price also includes the seller building a road from State Road 82 to the subject property, which is estimated to be about $5 million. As our appraisals are about a year old, as staff has updated comparables or industrial type of properties in the general marketplace, we're finding that those sales are upwards of $400,000 per acre, whereas the purchase price of this subject property is about $290,000 per acre.
Commissioners, do you have any questions for Mr. Clemens or our county staff? Commissioner Pendergrass?
Robert, thank you. On behalf of the residents that live on the west side of that, what would this facility look like and how would it impact their living conditions of their homes that they currently live at now?
If I may defer to Doug Whitehead, please.
Thank you. And Doug knows exactly what I'm talking about, and we've all been in contact with the residents of that area of the city of Fort Myers. That's Pelican Preserve there, directly to the west and the south of this gateway. So, good.
Yes, sir. The building will be as you're looking at the far right side of the property near the auto lot. It's already located there. It's been located there for decades. We will have trees and stormwater management next to the residential area. It's also part of the reason we're looking for this much acreage to make sure we have an appropriate buffer between us and the residential area.
So what would the structure look like? How high, how big, the hours of the facility?
The structure will be approximately a 2.5-story building. All operations will be inside. We have toured people at our present facility to give them an idea, but this will be an improved facility with all operations, both recycling and unloading located indoors.
So 2.5 stories based upon living conditions, or 2.5 stories for industrial, because industrial use stores are actually different heights. So would it be for crane reasons and trucks, would it be 2.5 stories, which would be beyond 60 feet? Or would it be like a commercial building for residential or for people, offices, which would be a lot shorter?
Sir, we'll get back to you on that because I don't know, but it's dictated by we first design the machinery that goes in the building, and then the roof goes over the building. It is definitely not higher than the trees that are presently on that border between us and the neighbors.
How about the hours of work, Monday through Friday? What's the times?
So just over time, but it would essentially start as Monday through Friday in operation.
Times?
Approximately 6 a.m. through mid-evening, approximately 8 p.m. to handle the amount. It's driven by the amount of tonnage that we generate as a population of the county.
How about like any type of smell or any contaminants getting in the soil or water in that area? But I know it's all going to be, the surface will obviously be conditioned for that, and drainage will be part of the management plan.
Yes, sir. Odor will be contained inside the building.
Okay. How about noise?
We'll have to test that, but trees will help with that. And there's other things we can do based upon testing the machinery. But the main thing is that everything will be inside the building. We don't have a building design portion, but the noise issues that we saw much earlier today in the meeting is that we intend to be, right now, our present building is much lower than that. And we intend to be much lower than the present building.
So based upon OSHA requirements, you're going to have the beeping of the vehicles backing up. Would those all be contained inside the building? Or would it be trucks outside with the beeping backup warning required by OSHA?
The trucks that will be waiting outside during the morning, but will be unloading inside the building. When we load the bales into tractor trailers, when they go to the marketplace, they'll be outside, but the loading facilities, the bales will be located inside the building.
Thank you.
I had one more question, Commissioner Pendergrass. Great questions too. Doug, wanted to ask real quick about, is this a replacement for the other recycling facility that we already have near the current solid waste office, Buckingham, I think?
Yes, sir. As you may recall, back in December 20, we talked about building a plant that can handle more tons per hour to accept the growing material that we're generating in the county. So it is a replacement for that building.
And then that would free up space at the other site to then build more, I guess, more items that would complement the waste to energy plant, or?
Sir, we don't really know what's going to happen with that location, which is located right near Buckingham Road. It could be an indoor construction demolition recycling facility, but we just don't know. We have a lot of ideas on that. But as we assess growth every few months, we'll have to decide what we're going to do with the other properties.
If homeowners nearby have questions as we go through this process, are you all able to host tours or an open house out at the existing facility to provide some certainty of what it might look like? Or?
Yes, sir, absolutely. We have done a few tours already. We can do tours of this land and the plans, do do a meeting like we've done in the past at Pelican Preserve, but also host tours, which we've done with some leadership already of the present plant.
Okay. All right. Any further questions then before we take public comment? Commissioner Sandelli?
No, I think all of us have been out there. First time I went, I was very impressed, and thank you for the work that's been done. I'm sure, the next project will be even better. So thank you as we continue to grow. So thanks.
If I could, Doug, I know Carol and some other residents have been out there with you, Kovareki. What was their feedback when you talked to them out there for the site, their concerns?
So their feedback is that there will be residents that will be concerned. We need to have outreach. We need to tell exactly what obviously we're going to do. But when they've seen the new plant, the old plant rather, at Buckingham, the feedback was positive. No odor issues that detected. And also, that plant's located right near Buckingham Road, and there really wasn't any noise that we heard at that facility, outside the facility. And I took them for that purpose, sir.
Thank you.
Good deal. All right. If that concludes our questions then of our administration, we'll go ahead and call for public comment on administrative agenda item 1. Does anyone come to speak on this item? Okay, go ahead. And if you just state your name for the record.
I'm sorry, I forgot to before. Hi, this is Marcia Ellis, and I have a quick question, which is, as the Gulf Coast landfill is in that area, I'm just wondering if it has been identified previously as a brownfield area, just because I know there's extra grant opportunities and funding opportunities, or being considered for brownfield evaluation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any further comments on this item? Okay, we'll close public comment. We'll come back to the board. Commissioners, does anybody wish to make a motion?
I just wanted to say I thank staff for all working with it. I know this is definitely needed. Like I said, I've been contacted over the last 6 months, I guess, regarding the residents from the area, how this is going to affect their concerns. That's why I was asking the questions I was asking, how it's going to affect their living conditions of the homes that currently exist there now. I mean, most people moved in after the landfill is already open, but this is now something new coming in addition to that. So it's the concerns of the residents.
Excellent. Very good.
I'll move the item.
Okay, motion for approval from Commissioner Ruane. You have a second? Second from Commissioner Sandelli. Do we have any further discussion on the item? All right, I see no further discussion. Are there any objections?
I object.
Okay, one objection from Commissioner Pendergrass. Motion carries 4-1. Please introduce item number 2. Mr. Harner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is to approve task order for Hurricane Ian disaster cost recovery support. And I'd like to ask Pete Winton to present this item.
Commissioners, this is an additional task order for our cost recovery consultants. So the county is seeking to get reimbursement from the state and FEMA of roughly $300 million for all of the county facilities that were damaged, as well as emergency work and debris removal immediately following the storm. Hagerty helps all our fiscal folks with this. They're a workforce multiplier also, because we just don't have the staff to put together just the voluminous amount of information that is required and documentation required for our requests to FEMA. This is all reimbursable. The county receives a 5% administrative fee of all of our obligated projects. So we'll receive anywhere from 12 to 15 million for administration of our reimbursement. And that's what we use to pay for Hagerty. This is an up to amount. I expect the amount we pay Hagerty to taper off as we go through the end of this year, because we are quickly getting all of our projects submitted to the state and then to FEMA. And really there'll be a little bit of a lull then until we receive significant requests for further information from the state and federal facilities. So it's an up to amount. It will taper off, and we are monitoring this very closely to make sure we stay within a reimbursable cost.
Very good. All right, any questions for our administration at this time?
I'll move the item.
Okay, we have a motion for approval from Commissioner Ruane, and the second is from Commissioner Greenwell. Let's go to public comment then. Does anybody wish to speak in public comment on administrative agenda item 2?
Marcia Ellis for the record. I was actually monitoring the BOCC website, waiting for the agenda to drop for this meeting. And it did drop at 6 days, not the full week, which is required. I don't really, because there's been some confusion and some changing about the noticing and that type of thing. I just want to point that out. I also was at the recent Recovery Task Force meeting, and that was on Friday, still monitoring, waiting for the document to drop, because it's too much of a burden to take in all of these documents, especially when we're looking at consent agendas the past couple of meetings in the 60s, and being limited as the public to 3 minutes to take in a 60 item consent agenda, or have the time to be able to take in these documents with such short noticing, which is below the requirement, is really a tremendous burden. And I do know that public input is important in this process, and I wanted to bring that to your attention. It's like trying to jump on a moving train. We know that we benefit. Let's just take that allegory a little bit further. We benefit from that public transportation. We know that it's good for our community, good for our planet. It's what we want. But the public is having a hard time jumping on this train because things are happening too rapidly. And I really wish that as a community that we could focus on recovery without muddying the waters with excessive new development, because the people who live in this community don't feel like that we're being heard and our interests are being protected. So I wanted to take just a moment.
I was
And
going to say, I don't think your comments are really germane to the question at hand here, though. And so if you have just general comments, there's a time at the end of the agenda called Public Presentation of Matters by Citizens, where you can give just general comments on things that are not on the agenda. But for this item,
right, yes,
this contract with Haggerty,
yes.
I didn't hear anything about that.
So this is where you basically have the action plan now. At some point, it's loaded up and the public can view it, because I was there last night whenever about 9-10 o'clock the last time I was able to look in there and start to see a more developed document that's detailing this process. What I'm saying is that I would love to give more specific comment, but I can't because I'm not getting full access to the documents. And so if my comments are off base, it's just a reflection of the chaos around this process. Thank you for your time.
All right, do we have any further comments on administrative agenda item 2, the task order for Hurricane Ian disaster cost recovery support? Okay, I see no more comments then. We'll come back to the board. We already have a motion for approval from Commissioner Ruane and the seconds from Commissioner Greenwell. Any discussion, board members, on this item?
Just for clarification, I mean, the reason we're actually approving this is to get the necessary reimbursement for all the services they're providing. I just want to separate the two, and this is about reimbursements.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner.
No problem.
I just want to say,
Commissioner Pendergrass.
love having public comment on anything we do here, but I think some of the comments, we'll support the item, but when it comes to the whole process, that's the same thing I've struggled with every day. I've attended some of the meetings, and the lack of knowing everything that's going on and us involved as a board, because it's a countywide issue. Rebuilding long-term is a countywide, and it's not knowing, and us not being involved, our staff's not involved, is definitely a concern, but I'm gonna support the item today.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, any further discussion then? I see no further discussion. Are there any objections to the motion? No objections to the motion. That motion carries unanimously. All right, let's move to administrative agenda item 3.
Thank you. This is to publish the draft CDBG-DR action plan to accept public comment. And I'd like to ask Glenn Sire to present this item.
Commissioners, we are asking you to publish the Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery Draft Action Plan and commence a public comment period that would last the entire month of August. As was previously discussed with the board, this is the schedule that will keep us on track in order to submit a final plan to HUD on September 20th, which is our due date. The plan is a 256-page elaboration of the program allocations that were discussed during your workshop. We did send a program and project synopsis to the board a couple of weeks ago and have attached it to this agenda item as well. For those who don't want to review the full document, they can still see the heart of the programs, make public comment. As the board asked us to do previously, we have scheduled 9 public meetings to be held throughout Lee County during the month of August. We will also accept comments by email and through the website. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer those.
Commissioners, any questions for our administration at this time? Okay. You know, Glenn, just to clarify some things and get them out there though. So today's vote would open up the 30-day comment period then, correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct. It would start today, but we have scheduled to go all the way through August 31st.
Good deal. And so where will people be able to find all of these items so that they can read them and then comment them? And how will they comment?
So the entire action plan, draft action plan is on our webpage, and you can link to it from the county's homepage. The material will also be distributed in condensed form at each of the 9 public meetings. So residents have an opportunity to either attend those meetings and make comments in person, or they can email them to us. The email address is also on the website. And there will also be a form that they can use to upload comments through Lee County's website.
Good deal. And then what will be your process to compile all those comments?
Commissioner, we intend to compile those for the board in, I don't want to say real time, but pretty close to it, so that we can package that up for the board prior to your first meeting in September, so that you can evaluate all of those comments and provide any direction that you want to based on public comment at your first September board meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. Any further questions, commissioners? Commissioner Ruane.
I'm going to move the item, but just to follow up with some of your comments, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, this is an accumulation of the last 10 months of the various meetings from when we first rolled this out, public meetings, workshops, 17 public meetings, now an additional 9. This is just an accumulation of information where the public's been engaged, and we certainly have had it as transparent as humanly possible, not only from the website, but the multiple branch meetings, as well as the task force meeting, as well as the town hall meetings. This is just your opportunity to obviously weigh in and help with our recovery for Lee County. I'm going to move the item.
We have a motion for approval from Commissioner Ruane. Do we have a second?
A second.
Second from Commissioner Greenwell. All right, at this time then, let's go ahead and move to public comment on administrative agenda item 3. I think your comments really were on that.
That's all I wanted to clarify. I misspoke.
Understood. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead and come forward.
Hello, I am Sophia Brubaker, Secretary and resident of Sunshine Mobile Village. Thank you, Commissioner Ruane, Commissioner Sandelli, and members of the Board of Commissioners for allowing me to speak today. I suspect I might be the first to provide public comment since you made this available. Thank you. I am here today to speak on behalf of my Sunshine Village neighbors. Sunshine is a 55 and older, HUD-approved, resident-owned and managed community located in the Iona portion of Lee County. Our neighborhood has proudly withstood the impact of development and all kinds of inclement weather for over 50 years. Before Ian, Sunshine was a thriving mobile home community of nearly 200 homes. Sunshine provided our seniors with a unique and affordable housing solution that enabled us to age gracefully together. We benefited from the advantages that come from living in a close-knit community where proximity to friends and neighbors promoted healthy social interactions on a daily basis. Our community center was the hub of our village. It gave our seniors a central facility in which to gather and thrive. Our residents lived independently, often well into their 90s, and some to 100 years old as the result of the unique and supportive living situation that Sunshine afforded its residents. Since the hurricane, our residents have worked tirelessly with weekly board meetings and lots of public input to recover from nearly total destruction of our community. Our perimeter canals have been cleared thanks to Representative Bottano's office and help, and are flowing in time for the summer rains. 144 homes have been demolished to date, and the ground has been broken just this week for the first 2 new custom-built homes to be rebuilt in the park. Despite this progress, our residents are worried that Sunshine will not be able to recover without the assistance and leadership of Lee County and the Long-Term Recovery Task Force. This would be a terrible loss for Lee County. Preserving affordable, dignified, and climate-resilient housing options for seniors is what our Sunshine residents are hoping to achieve. In particular, Sunshine needs help rebuilding to meet the AE 10 and 11 FEMA elevation requirements, having had 5.5 feet of water inside our homes. Going forward, we will be a community of manufactured, modular, and custom-built, elevated, resilient homes. We need help building new homes and a community center raised up on stilts with necessary lifts and elevators. I've been told that a lift may add $20,000 and piers $80,000 to the total cost of our homes and much more to our community center costs. In addition to assistance with construction costs, we will need help repaving our roads after the last FEMA demolition and debris trucks, cement mixers, construction vehicles, and heavy lift cranes depart. And we need help restoring and replanting our common areas so our seniors have the respite of nature and shade in their lives once again.
Thank you, Ms. Brubaker. Thank you so much. I did want to just clarify too, your card said public presentation of matters by citizens, but this was clearly your topic you wanted to speak on then?
Am I speaking in the wrong time?
No, I think you're speaking actually in the right time. It was just marked differently on the card, but I think this.
Oh,
is
that's my
germane to
error.
the
I'm
action.
sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
I thought it was timely for this particular time because I noticed at the task force meeting that the Iona is not listed as in the neighborhood plan update.
Well, thank you for your comments.
And
this morning.
I'm dismayed, and I thank you very much for your time.
We've noted them. Thank you very much. All right. Good deal. Thanks, Mr. Harner. All right. Anybody else wish to speak in public comment on the action plan item? Okay, I see no further public comment, so we'll come back to the board. We have a motion for approval from Commissioner Ruane and the seconds from Commissioner Greenwell. Any further discussion from our board? Okay, I see no discussion from the board. Are there any objections to the motion? I see no objections to the motion. It passes unanimously. All right, Mr. Harder, please introduce item number 4 at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is to approve request to appropriate FY23 contingency funds in the amount of $7.3 million. And Sheriff Marcino is available if you have any comments.
Very good. Commissioners, any questions on this item? Commissioner Ruane?
If I'm not mistaken, this is two pieces to this item. It's obviously a reimbursement of 4.6. So we're really cash flowing this temporarily till the money's actually received, right?
Yes, that's my understanding, Commissioner.
Okay. And then obviously the second piece is for their more than overdue recognition for the sheriff's office and their raises. So I'm going to move forward with this. And thank you for your service, Sheriff.
Very good. Was that a motion for approval?
Yes,
Commissioner Ruane?
it was.
Motion for approval from Commissioner
Second.
Ruane. Second from Commissioner Pendergrass. Very good. Any questions, commissioners?
I had a question, maybe Pete can
Commissioner
answer.
Pendergrass?
So Pete, I know Commissioner Wayne said this is FEMA money. So the $4.6 million FEMA, like we all waiting on this for a while, months or years to get the money back. When that money is returned back to the sheriff's, would that money be returned back to Lee County taxpayers, or would it be stay within the sheriff's budget once it's returned?
My understanding is that when that's received, it would be returned back to the county.
Okay.
Because we are cash flowing that item for the sheriff's office.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. And go ahead, Commissioner Ruane.
Pete, this is no different than any other reimbursable item from FEMA, right? This is just in a different category, but certainly in the same claims that we're waiting for, right?
Correct.
Correct. Thank you.
Okay. And then the last question I had, Pete, we talked about it in my briefing, but it says here for the source of funds, the sheriff's 3% contingency reserve. I understand that's something that actually we had years ago, but doesn't exist anymore. Tell me about what is this 3% contingency fund? Is it really just the general fund reserves?
Commissioners, it's the general fund reserves, that 3%, so somewhat a vestige of the past. We do not set aside specific percentages for any of the entities that are funded by the general fund. The general fund reserves are at the board's complete discretion.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Well, this is certainly a very worthwhile item. We have to absolutely support our deputies and our folks who are protecting us. So it makes a lot of sense. All right. Any further questions before we take public comment? All right. Well, at this time, we'll call for public comment. Does anybody wish to speak in public comment on this item? Okay. I see no public comment. We'll come back to the board. We do have a motion for approval from Commissioner Ruane and a second from Commissioner Pendergrass. Do you have any further discussion on this? Okay, I see no further discussion. Are there any objections? No objections. That motion carries unanimously. All right, thank you, folks. Please introduce item number 5.
This is to accept FDEP Hurricane Stormwater and Wastewater Assistance Grant Funding, and I'd like to ask Paul Flores to present this item.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. For the record, Paul Flores, Utilities Deputy Director. I'm here to present administrative item number 5 to accept an approximate $2.9 million grant from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, FDEP. Earlier this year, FDP made available a $100 million hurricane, stormwater, and wastewater assistance grant program, which offered financial support specifically for wastewater system utilities in counties affected by Hurricane Ian. Our utility staff applied for submitted 4 applications for various projects. I'm happy to acknowledge that we're bringing forward 2 of these projects. The other 2 will be brought forward in a future board meeting. The 2 projects we're recognizing today is the first is the Emergency Lift Station 5507 replacement project, which is to replace the lift station and the collection system that was washed out along Pine Island Road in Matlacha. The second project is our lift station generator replacement project, which is intended to replace 11 generators that were permanently damaged by Hurricane Ian due to storm surge. I'm happy to inform you that both projects were fully awarded the requested amount that was submitted by utilities, which is excellent news for the utilities department and also our community we serve. One significant advantage of these grants is the county is not required to provide a matching amount. This grant opportunity provided by the state is greatly appreciated by utilities department as it allows us to carry forward other critical projects without the additional financial burden set upon the county's budget. Chairman, should the board have any additional questions, I'm available to answer them. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions at this time?
I move the item, and I just want to say, staff, thank you for doing a great job on this again.
Second.
Motion for approval from Commissioner Pendergrass and the seconds from Commissioner Ruane. Do we have any other questions then for our team? Okay, see no other questions then. Thank you, Mr. Flores. At this time, I'd like to call for public comment on item A5, A5. Okay, I see no public comment. At this time, we'll come back to the board. Any discussion on this item, commissioners? Okay, I see no discussion. Are there any objections? No objections. That motion carries unanimously. All right, at this time, we'll move to our public hearings agenda. And I'd like to recognize our county attorney's office to introduce public hearing number 1.
Good morning, Commissioners. Michael Jacobs, Assistant County Attorney. I have a affidavit of publication is sufficient for this hearing. I'm going to enter that into the record now. This is the second and final hearing to adopt an ordinance codifying the Lee County ordinances. This will provide a code of ordinances that identifies all of our ordinances in the past that have been incorporated into this one major document. It also reincorporates the land development code into the code of ordinances.
Okay. Any questions, commissioners, on this item? Okay, I see no questions. Thank you, Mr. Jacob. At this time, I'd like to open the public hearing number 1 up for public comment. Does anybody wish to speak this morning? Go ahead.
If you'll give me just a second.
Sure.
If you
There we go.
Thank you very much. This is from the agenda item, and notice that when it identifies this as being a county-wide issue, because it truly is when we talk about the land code, and there have been some questions about the transparency and a move towards language that's been used is duplicative, looking at duplicative language that exists in some of the county documents, and then deferring to state statutes or deferring to agencies. And I had requested at the previous public hearing, the first public hearing, that we utilize the Municode platform, which offers the ability to give substantive comments and also provides some versioning so that we can better understand the changes in the land code. Because I don't think that the county wants to move away from our local control and the way that the public has traditionally engaged in having a voice in the decisions that affect our community. And so I've been very alarmed that we've been hasty in adopting the land code and not seeking out the public input in this, and that could be eroding the public input in this process. In fact, in Manatee County, one of our consultants that the county has long hired to look at water issues and is also worked previously with the Housing Authority was called out by the locals, and that would be in the Bradenton Times. And I have a copy for all of you. The language that was used as that the consultant, DeLisi, explained that it was in his opinion that the county regulations are duplicative of the state requirements and inflexible. And the example that was given was that in Manatee County, the 50-foot protection for wetlands, if we rely exclusively on South Florida water management, those would reduce to 15. And I think that overall as a county, if we take the position of ensuring consistent application of resilience guidance across this county, then we can't go wrong. And in fact, I consider it to be the directive of the federal government. With the billions of dollars rolling in here, the last thing that we want to do is we want to erode our local input in this process and lessen the protections for the environment that are existing. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. This is a very serious issue.
Anybody else wish to speak in public comment on this public hearing, item number 1? So it's the codification of the codes. All right, I see no further public comment, so we'll come back to the board. Does somebody wish to make a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Motion to
Second.
approve from Commissioner Greenwell and the seconds from Commissioner Ruane. Okay, any further discussion or questions on this? You know, really just, Mr. Wesh, I'd love to give you just a moment to react to some of the things you heard. Today, we're not changing anything. Today, we're just codifying in a different way the code of ordinances, correct?
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman. The requested action for you today is to bring the county into compliance with section 125.68(1) Florida statute, which requires all your ordinances to be codified. That's all we're doing today. You're basically assimilating all the outstanding ordinances and putting them into one book.
Okay, the reason for my question was because the headline on one of those articles was from a different county, not our county, but it said something about gutting codes, and that's not what's happening today at all, just codifying.
Yes, sir. The article quoted has no applicability to Lee County.
Okay, great, thank you very much. All right, commissioners, any further comments? All right, at this time, then we'll go ahead and vote on the item. Are there any objections? I see no objections. That motion carries unanimously. Okay, will the county attorney's office please introduce item number 2 under the public hearing agenda?
Good morning, Board. Andrea Fraser from the County Attorney's Office. I have a public hearing. I have your affidavit of publication regarding the COPCN adoption of Medicab transportation. The notice is legally sufficient in form and content to proceed with the hearing. At this time, staff will come up and provide the board with the overview prior to public comment.
Okay, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Benjamin Avis, Public Safety. The item before us is an application for a COPCN, a Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity for Medicab Transportation LLC. And as the Deputy County Attorney mentioned, all of these are governed by Lee County Ordinance 08-16, which contains 6 requirements that are necessary to be met to issue the COPCN. I'll go through those in just a second, but just to give you some background on the application, the staff review of this application was issued on June 1st with an amended report attached to the agenda item that was issued on June 9th. This application is slightly different from many of the other applications that you hear for 2 specific reasons. Number 1, the application is for basic life support transport. Basic life support transport consists of transportation in a certified ambulance on a stretcher. It includes oxygen administration, a small number of medications, and medical monitoring. Non-medical transportation, which is traditionally your stretcher and wheelchair vans, that transportation none of those providers are regulated by the COPCN ordinance. They're wholly unregulated. Secondly, the applicant in this case is not already licensed by the Florida Department of Health. Many times we'll have an existing provider in another county come into Lee County, and that existing license is used to support the application. In this case, the applicant is applying to be able to obtain a COPCN, and that COPCN, that initial COPCN, has to be in hand in order to apply for the license from the Florida Department of Health. As I mentioned before, there are 6 requirements in the ordinance, and I'll go through each of those quickly for you. In Section 9 of Lee County Ordinance 08-16, Item A, that there is a public necessity for the service. In the application, the applicant has letters of support from Encompass Health Rehabilitation Hospital of Cape Coral and 8 assisted living facilities, skilled nursing facilities, and behavioral health providers. In item B, that the applicant has sufficient knowledge and experience. The applicant operates stretcher and wheelchair services today in Lee County. These services, as I mentioned, are not regulated under the Lee County ordinance, but the applicant does have extensive experience in this type of patient transport. They also, in their application package, have an advisory board that includes the former chief of Lee County EMS. This support could be used to satisfy this item in section 9 of the ordinance. Item number C, that the applicant has an adequate revenue base for the proposed service. Based on the documentation that's been provided to the county, this criteria has also been met. For items D and E, which are that the proposed service meets the minimum and additional equipment requirements within Florida Administrative Code and the Lee County Common Treatment Guidelines, and that the proposed service meets the additional equipment requirements and personnel essentials in the Common Treatment Guidelines. These are both attestations within the application and are both found to be met. And finally, item F, which is that the proposed service obtains and provides certificates of insurance mandated by Florida Administrative Code, Florida statutes, and the Lee County ordinance. Again, that has been met as well. And those certificates are also listing the county as a certificate holder. So if there were a change to their insurance, the county would be notified to that event. The staff recommendation is to grant the COPCN to allow them to seek initial licensure. The applicant and their counsel are here as well, and I believe intend to speak in public comment as well. And I'm available should you have any questions.
Any questions, commissioners?
I have a
Commissioner
couple questions.
Pendergrass.
Ben, thank you for the information. How did your committee assess the needs? How did you come up with saying there was a needs for this process?
The question regarding need, we have evaluated using the letters of support that the applicants obtained from local healthcare facilities. So by going back and asking the applicant, in fact, this application has been previously heard by the board and was redirected back for the applicant to reapply after it was denied. They did not have sufficient requests for that type of service. They came back with a fresh application with additional letters of support from those facilities, including the rehab hospital in Cape Coral.
So how many times did they try to get to this point, to get this far?
This is the second application for a COPCN that they have filed.
And you mentioned 8 assisted living facilities. Did they currently have a letter of support from Lee Health or any other major hospitals in the area?
As noted in the amended staff report, Lee Health's letter was rescinded by Lee Health after the initial staff report was issued.
Do you know if the insurance has increased? Because I know this company, weren't they also denied in Collier County because of lack of insurance?
I'm not aware of that, but the insurance certificate that was submitted was reviewed by Lee County Risk Management and meets the requirements of the ordinance.
Would you have knowledge of if they applied to another county next to us, if they were doing business there, what the process was there? Would that be public record now?
It potentially could be public record depending on how that application process plays out. In each Florida county, it's handled differently. So whether that application package would be public record, I'm not aware of, and specifically in Collier County.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Any further questions, commissioners? Okay, seeing no further questions, thank you, Mr. Ames. Let's go to public comment at this time. At this time, I do have 2 cards that have been turned in. The first card is from Vanessa Grant Oliver, and then the second card is from Taylor Bolt. Go ahead. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Vanessa Grant Oliver, CEO of Ambutrans Ambulance. It's nice to see you all this morning. I'm here today because we share Public Safety Director Avis's concern that Medicab does not have the sufficient knowledge and experience to operate the proposed services in Lee County. As you know, patients have little to no ability to choose the ambulance service that transports them from a hospital to a skilled nursing facility. Those are your traditional BLS transports. Therefore, it's incumbent upon this commission to thoroughly vet the ambulance services that apply for COPCNs. In this case, the applicant bears the burden of presenting competent, substantial evidence that they have the requisite experience. I submit that they have not met this burden. The applicant's sole managing member has no experience in neither 911 nor in private ambulance service. His resume does not show that he's ever worked one day in an ambulance service. He's not produced the resume nor identified anyone in the organization with a formal role that has the 911 or private ambulance experience. Moreover, there is no evidence that their medical director has experience in EMS or in drafting medical protocols for ambulance. There's a dramatic difference between operating an unregulated non-medical wheelchair and stretcher company and operating a highly regulated healthcare EMS company. The applicant's lack of experience could harm your citizens in numerous ways. First is patient care. That's the care that your patients are receiving in the back of the ambulance. They haven't identified training programs for their EMTs, the various certification processes, how they're going to vet their EMTs. There's nothing of that sort in their application. Moreover, there's the issue of the protection of patients' protected health information. Now, their medical director has been sanctioned in the past for inappropriate storage of patient medical records. In this case, the applicant doesn't state whether they will produce written patient care reports, electronic, or what have you, or how they will store and distribute those records. The main concern is surprise medical bills. They have not stated that they're a Medicare provider, a Medicaid provider, or that they will bill insurance for these transports. So you're going to have patients who are Medicare, who have no say over the ambulance that's chosen for them, getting surprise medical bills if this company is not required to become a Medicare or Medicaid provider or to bill insurance as a prerequisite. The applicant's lack of knowledge and experience should be disqualifying. However, should you choose to grant the certificate, we would respectfully request that you require the applicant to meet certain conditions that could mitigate the harm to your citizens, such as requiring that the applicant within 120 days start operating the 3 promised BLS ambulances as stated in their application on a 24-hour-a-day, 365-a-day basis. Require the applicant to become a licensed Medicare and Medicaid provider. Require the applicant's insurance to notify this commission, public safety director, of any changes to the insurance status, and require the applicant.
Your time
Yep.
has expired, but you did give us this memo before the meeting, and we do have it in front of us. So thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you all for your time.
At this time, I'd like to call Taylor Bolt. Am I saying that right, Taylor?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good deal.
Good morning, Commissioners. Taylor Bull with Henderson and Franklin. I represent the applicant, Medicab Transportations LLC today. First off, just want to thank Mr. Abe's and his staff for their assistance throughout this process. They were extremely helpful and we're grateful for the assistance. Secondly, we agree with the staff report that Medicab's application is compliant with the Land Development Code. Firstly, because Lee County does have a need for BLS transportation services that Medicab is providing. Beyond the letters of support provided in the application, there has been a major increase in the population of Lee County within the past 10 years. And with this population increase has led to an expansion of hospitals and creation of new medical, rehab, and behavioral facilities as well. And along with this, we've seen a spike in the ETA wait time for BLS transportations anywhere from 5 to 6 hours. And if approved today, Medicab would be able to lower the overall ETA wait time while providing a high-quality medical service. And I understand it is a concern of another company in the area about our experience and qualifications to provide these types of services, and I'd like to address that here today. Firstly, we do have a medical director that is part of Medicab's Transportation's Advisory Board. Along with that, there are other doctors on staff with 20 years of geriatric experience. We also have staff with over combined 19 years of experience within the private ambulance industry as well. Along with that, there are also registered nurses with 20 years of experience, along with certified drivers, and 6 of those certified drivers are EMT certified, and that is who Medicab would be using if approved today for BLS transportation services. Along with that, Medicab has already provided for non-emergency medical transportation, 78,000 stretcher trips, 27,000 COVID transportations, and 295,000 wheelchair transportations as well. Along with this, Medicab is also an emergency evacuation provider for hurricanes, and they've provided their services during Hurricane Ian as well. Further, Medicap has 11 years of experience within Lee County functioning as a non-emergency transportation service with no incidents or reported issues. And importantly, Medicap will not be doing advanced life-saving or critical care, and it is not a requirement for us to be certified with the 911 facility in any capacity. And further, with regards to Medicare and Medicaid, in order for Medicap to be approved to accept those insurance, they must first have a state license first. And the COCPN license is a stepping stone in order for us to get that required state license. And if the board has any questions, myself and the president of Medicap here are here ready and available to answer any questions you may have.
Excellent. Very good.
Thank you.
For your comments. Do we have anybody else who's come to speak in public comment on this item today? This is the COPCN public hearing number 2. Any further comments? Okay, we'll close public comment. We'll come back to the board at this time for discussion.
Chairman, if I could make a motion to deny based upon the competent central evidence.
Okay. Commissioner Pendergrass has made a motion to deny. Is there a second? Second. Second from Commissioner Ruane. Okay. Do we have any discussion on that? Okay. Seeing any further questions then? Seeing no further discussion or questions, I'll go ahead and call the question. Are there any objections? Okay, no objections. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. We'll move to public hearing number 3 has been deferred. That concludes our public hearing agenda. We'll move to walk-ons and carryovers. Do we have any walk-ons or carryovers, Mr. Harner? No. Real quick, before we leave the COPCN issue then, Mr. Harner, maybe Mr. Abes could answer a question. Did he find any necessity during his review process to have to amend the ordinance related to COPCN? I know that topic has come up in the past, and I figure since we're on the topic, I'd love to ask that question.
Thank you, Commissioner, for that question. I think it was 2018, we attempted to amend the ordinance. We had a draft of that ordinance. We circulated that amongst all of the stakeholders, including local fire agencies, as well as our local non-emergency transport providers, our private interfacility providers. And universally, there was a lack of agreement for what that should look like in terms of a rewrite of the ordinance. So as you mentioned, there's a lot of complications with the ordinance. We would love to get to a rewrite. It's very difficult when there are so many competing interests weighing in on what that ordinance should look like.
Okay. But you do find that it might be necessary to rewrite the ordinance at some point?
We've been trying for 5 years. It's absolutely, it's a priority for us to get to that.
So what would you need from the board to support that process?
I think direction from the board, and I defer to the county manager.
Exactly. We just need direction to do that again, and we would move forward with that process.
I mean, commissioners, I'd like to hear from y'all, but when I have a director who says he would like to see an ordinance rewritten, I have a hard time not, going with that request. What are your thoughts?
Oh, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Easy.
I have a couple of comments. First of all, when I looked at the issue, the first person I go to has been in this team. That's the expertise that I'd like to hear from, based on all those issues that we discovered. Second thing is, as we grow, we're going to have to add additional resources. And we have a young company that can grow with us. And I'd like to see them have every opportunity to put the pieces together to get the acknowledgement from the board.
Okay, very good. Any other comments?
Yeah, one comment. I'm a believer in competition. I believe we need competition in business. And obviously there's going to be a need with population growing for other providers to possibly move in. You just want to make sure that we're protecting the public and especially people that may not have a say. So that want to make sure that I would move to direct staff to rewrite that.
Okay, so the motion is to direct staff to begin the process of rewriting that ordinance. And is there a second from Commissioner? So the motion's from Commissioner Greenwell and the second's from Commissioner Ruane, but I see Commissioner Sandelli supportive as well. Do we have any further discussion, Commissioner Pendergrass?
Yeah, like Commissioner Pendergrass, so, patient care is really important. One of the best services we provide here in Lee County is EMS. That was my main concern, is that people in Bonita, or Lehigh Acres all get treated the same when they get transported. And when you see the variations of care and the types of services rendered, who is Medicare, Medicaid accepted, who doesn't get it, I don't want to make sure that people in Lehigh are transported, they get the same care if you live in Bonita Bay. So I think that we can look at that and make sure that all providers are be able to provide the same care countywide. And the competition is good, but the needs is good. I think right now when I've talked to people in the services, I've used their service in the past with past parents, that this is really important because, most times the people are important, you don't really hear from them about it because they're not either conscious or not well. So, but this is really important, but we need to also make sure that we're involved and we also articulate to staff what we want to see in the ordinance, not just directed for staff and driven by staff to facilitate one group.
Okay, understand. All right. Any further comments then before we vote on that? Let's take public comment then, since we did take a motion, we have a motion on the floor just to direct our staff to begin the process of rewriting that ordinance and agreeing with them that that is a priority to do. So let me call for public comment. Does anybody wish to speak in public comment on the item? Okay, and if you'll just state your name again before you begin speaking.
Michael Peters. Without directing any bad intent towards anybody or any business, when the county is doing an interlocal agreement, as I'm guessing this would be, with an additional transporter or a certificate of need, if you will, I think it would be appropriate if we included in the new ordinance yearly auditing.
Yearly audit. Okay, good comment. Any other comments? Sure.
Marcia Ellis. I heard some allusion to potentially this transport facility moving people out of the way if there was a hurricane coming. I know from experience that, you pay for these services. It's like $1,000 van ride. So I would hope that there would be other options that would be in place. I would hate to see up the space in our county for these services being taken up by a company that or an oversight in our contingency planning for hurricane evacuation services that doesn't allow for people to safely get out of the way without getting $1,000 van bill. I'm thinking about it from that perspective. I do agree with Commissioner Pendergrass. I think there's a place for competition, and then there are other places where we really have to look at public life and safety, and this is one of those. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? Okay. I see one more comment. And please state your name for the record.
Of course. Good morning. Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Martin Dongo. I'm the President of Medicap Transportation. I do appreciate the fact that you've deemed it necessary to rewrite the COCPN requirement for the county. I also approve of the like what the gentleman said, that there needs to be a requirement for auditing. Part of our reason why we applied for COCPN is because we have a burden in the county that needs to be fulfilled. It has everything to do with ETAs for hospitals, local facilities, and also with families that sometimes find themselves in need for transportation. We have worked with the local facilities for a very long time. Part of that is we're being contracted by Lee Health System for over 7 years, and we've been able to provide the type of service that they have required. We were requesting the possibility of being able to become a BLS company, that we can be able to reduce the time factor that has been impending and has been sitting in the county for a very long time, which we have Bicarac patients that are sitting for over 24 hours without transportation. We have oxygen patients that are waiting for over 6 hours. And we know we can reduce that time based on experience, and we know we can reduce that time based on our equipment availability. We would like to get an opportunity to reapply again for the COCPN, and we would like to be considered in the opportunity of rewriting the COCPN application. With that, I would also like that the board consider while doing this, that we do look at the state requirement for the application. That way we are able to be familiar from the board position of what the stages are for the requirement of the COCPN, because based on the requirement of the COCPN at the moment, we did meet the requirements. And so part of part of the being denied the opportunity to proceed and provide this is kind of disheartening for local businessmen. And we hope that the board would be part of the movement that helps small businesses continue to thrive and solve the problems of the county. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. All right, any further comments then before I close public comment on this? Okay, we'll come back to the board. Commissioners, any further comments on the item? You know, the only further comment, I think everybody's really wrapped up everything that was said here today really well. You know, one of the things I care about a lot are patients, especially those who need medical care, and the wait times that they have to face. You know, I think all of us have loved ones, and maybe even some of us might find ourselves individually in positions, and certainly we never want to have to hear that we have to wait 6 to 8 hours or 24 hours, you know, for transport or service from time to time. So, you know, as we grow to this 1 million people, which we've talked about is going to happen by the year 2030. I mean, it is. This is a reality. People have not stopped moving here. They're not going to stop. You know, we're going to have to continue to balance patient safety along with capacity to help alleviate some of the wait times as well. So,
If I could just say for the record, so people don't think there's people waiting, because the people I've talked to in the different services in the hospitals, they don't have that weight down. So we don't want to see that in the future. But currently that's not happening, because the current services are providing more vehicles as they need them based upon the needs. The only time there was an issue was back early on in March of COVID. There were some issues with transport because of everything was shut down. So people are still getting transport. As we grow, they're going to have to increase their facility, their transportation fleets.
okay, very good. All right, so let's call the question then. Are there any objections to the motion? I see none. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. All right, so that concludes our public hearings, our walk-ons and carryovers. At this time, we'll move to commissioner items. Commissioner Greenwell, do you have any items today?
I do not.
Okay, Commissioner Pendergrass, any items?
No.
Okay, Commissioner Sandelli, see you have a commissioner item.
I do. The historical home, there was a historical home that was built in 1919, probably 1,200 square feet. It was home of the Alvarez Smith family. The Historical Society, with the support of the village, would also like to relocate the building near their existing 2 structures in Estero Park. Currently, the site that's on now is owned by Estero and was purchased in 2019. So the village would like to help the Historical Society secure the grants and cover all costs. And so to go through that process, I would endorse that. So I'd like your approval on that.
So real quickly, are you asking for specific money as well? Or?
We're not asking for any money. They need to know that we would approve relocating the home there. They'll finance it from there. We have no costs. And it's on the land in the park.
Okay, commissioners, do you have any questions for Commissioner Sandelli? Commissioner Sandelli, would you be open to the idea of making this as a motion to bring the item back on a future blue sheet? I think one of the habits we've gotten into here that actually conflicts with our administrative code is we seem to be bringing items up as a commissioner item and then just passing them at the same meeting. It allows, if we can get it on a blue sheet, the whole public to be able to view the item.
There's nothing immediate about this. I'll be glad to bring it back for your consideration.
Okay, so is that a motion to direct the staff to prepare a blue sheet at a future meeting for this item to be considered?
Yes, Mr. Chair, it would be my assumption would be to amend the current agreement, work with the Historical Society, amend the current agreement, because we currently have 2 historical facilities on our property right now.
Okay.
Yeah, there is a current interlocal agreement, and so that would have to be amended. And so I'll come back.
Okay, so that's a motion from Commissioner Sandelli. Do we have a second? Seconds from Commissioner Ruane. Very good. Do we have any discussion, board members, on that? Okay, would any members of the public like to speak on the motion before we take a vote? And again, we're going to direct staff to bring it back for an official blue sheeted agenda item in the future. Okay, I see no public comment, so we'll come back to the board. Any further discussion? Are there any objections? No objections. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Commissioner.
I should have mentioned that when I brought it back.
Oh, excellent. Very good. Okay, so we'll move to Commissioner Ruane.
Consistent with what your request is, I was going to ask to have the neighborhood plans 5.1 obviously developed the proposals from Hagerty developed into a blue sheet for the next meeting on August 15th.
Okay, so a motion to ask for a blue sheet to be brought back on the next meeting and
Neighborhood plans, there's 13, and obviously a woman brought up the fact that maybe there might be a 14th. We're going to do a deeper dive and obviously go through the necessary requirements to make sure we help all the neighborhood plans recover from Ian.
Okay, do we have a second for that? Okay, second. So motion from Commissioner Ruane and seconds from Commissioner Sandelli. And this is just about whether it can be brought back for a future meeting to be voted on.
Correct.
I'm probably reluctant to support that because, I mean, what I'm hearing is 13 planning panels. I'm not really sure. And what did it tell the staff? Do we have any backup information? Because I see what's happening with the task force. We hear it in different places too, is for this is getting into more like a land use development thing. We're kind of overflow into the LDC issue we're having on Captiva. And we, over the years, the last 10 years, we've kind of got away from years ago when we first got on the board. We had a lot of litigation pending because of the prior boards had gave authority to citizen groups that basically were self-appointed, and they created these groups and they wanted to set land use development based upon height, development based upon economic development, how it affected commerce. And I really have a concern about trying to branch back out and tell people this is part of recovery, because people don't talk to them that lives in Pine Island, different parts of the county that had the roofs destroyed in Fort Myers or even in Lehigh. They're like, I need help from the county or the state. FEMA's already gone. That ship's already sailed, and they're looking for relief. But creating more oversight and creating groups to tell people how they're going to live and how they're going to, what their community should look like based upon land use, I don't think that's part of that. Should be part of that. So we can talk about the future, but I'm not going to support bringing it back on the future of the blue sheet. And if there's a funding element to it, I'd like to see some kind of backup now or even then, because when I ask staff for it now, I can't get it because we're not involved. So staff even cannot even provide me the information. So on that same note, though, I like to, after this motion, make a motion to maybe we need to have a workshop as soon as possible to talk about the whole task force before it comes back in December. I think we're going to have a document come back for us in December that does not mirror the philosophy of the board and what we want to do as far as the direction, how it involves future land use and delegating different people, so self-appointed, to basically come back and tell us how to set policy. I have a real problem with that.
So I'll come back to that motion then once we conclude, but we do have a current motion from Commissioner Ruane and a second from Commissioner Sandelli on the proposal from Commissioner Ruane to bring that $5.1 million item back on a future agenda to be evaluated and vetted.
Yeah, I think my comment is I'd like to see it so we get additional information to resolve some of the issues we have in front of us.
Okay. Commissioner Greenwell, any comments?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I feel like we should, we need additional information. Obviously, we have to be concerned with, the land use codes and development codes that we're moving forward with. And, I've been a part of a local board, and those boards are really suggestions of what they would like to see. Not, we've had some of these boards out there telling people they cannot do when county actually allows those things to be done. So just every now and then we need to realize that. And I would love for us to have more a workshop and spend more time, discussing that, because it does become an issue. And we have to be careful and not vote on the fly on things that do meet the Lee County codes or development codes. And I think we've done a little bit of that, and we definitely need to work on it.
Speaking for myself, I would absolutely support having the opportunity to bring, for any commissioner to be able to bring an item to an agenda to be able to have its day in court, if you will, to have a vote up or down. I think, we all have great ideas from time to time, and we would like to be able to present those ideas to the board to get an up or down vote, yes or no. And so, I'm always supportive of that if a commissioner wants to bring something back on a blue sheet. As for specifically talking about community planning panels, I will say that I have found myself in disagreement with them more times than I agree with them, not only on the outcomes, but even on the processes that way they have conducted business. And so, I would probably not be able to promise that I would support the blue sheet when it comes forward, but absolutely support the idea of somebody being able to bring their idea forward to the commissioners to get their up or down vote. So with that, any further discussion or comments? Okay. Let's go ahead and take a vote then. Well, actually, I guess we need to take public comment.
But
Commissioner Ruane.
Sandelli pulled the motion, so I don't know we have a motion on the floor.
Did you pull your second?
Oh, I thought you.
No, he left his second.
Okay, I
Yeah.
apologize.
I mean, and I believe you got a third to get it on a blue sheet, so.
You know what, I'll opine now. So, listen, this has been a recovery process for 10 months. It's been fully transparent. It's written up by staff. I've certainly gone over this with staff in great detail, both Glenn and Dave. So that this is a mystery or something new is disappointing, to say the least, because honestly, there's a lot of work that's been done. And honestly, I encourage you all to participate, not only in the meetings, up in Tallahassee as we go for the recovery aspects. It certainly is a team requirement, and certainly look forward to everyone's participation in this. I don't like to certainly do this, but we need to recover.
Amen. Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay.
If I could just add, definitely support recovery. It's just when I talk to staff, Dave, welcome, first day on the job here. So in the past, I actually attended the first meeting in San Carlos Park with the Haggerty Group, and I was there, you were there, Roger were there. Since then, when I reached out to staff to get information about other stuff, is your staff involved in the process in this at all, or is it all Haggerty and self-driven?
Our staff is participating in the meetings. They're not participants in the branch meetings. They're in the back, and they are able to speak at the public comment piece. When questions are asked of our staff can't participate in that portion.
So our
of the
staff is
branch
not
meeting.
participating. They're sitting in the audience like I participate. I sat in the audience in Captiva and basically wasn't recognized. But I was in the audience with staff and our attorneys, while others, lobbyists or attorneys from other groups, basically ran the meeting. Correct?
Yeah, our staff is there present, but they're not running this meeting. This is not run by us.
And like I said, I'd be happy to, if the board feels to bring this back to the bush and talk about it, I will be happy, be prepared. You're going to get calls from the consultants, the lobbyists, the people who are looking for that $5 million. And my question of the day is going to be then and after that, and after they call us between now and then, is where's that money going back to the people in the farmers or on the islands that need that money to recover for long-term recovery? Not setting meetings is not setting policy, just to have a meeting to talk about we met. To talk about, and that's what people from the committees are coming back to, the branch committees and committees are saying, what are we doing? We really haven't seen any results. And I want to make sure the document comes back to us in December is not going to be putting us in a position like we've been in recently, where it's a document we are not as a board going to philosophy support planning land use changes based upon the term of recovery or resiliency. And that is what I'm seeing is what's happening. Before it comes back in December, we'll try to get ahead of that so it doesn't come back to something the board's not going to support. And then the people that have been involved, that's been so gracious with their time volunteering, is going to come back and say, why did I spend all my time doing that? Because they're saying that now. But your staff you're just not participating. You're just basically listening. If you're asked a question, you can answer a question, basically.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
At the end of the meeting, we were able to participate.
I think it's important that we obviously work in concert with one another. It's great to have resiliency because that's why we had the Captiva item before us. That was under the guidelines of resiliency, not density, although we've gotten to the point of density. So it's convenient when we want to be convenient and not when we don't want it to be. So I would just like consistency up here.
Okay. Well, let's get to the motion. That we do have a motion. We have a second to put this item on a blue sheet related to the $5.1 million for community planning panels. I'm still not 100% sure what it is, but that's why we'll put it on a blue sheet so we can get the background information done and the backup information presented and what the contract would look like and all of that. So let's do this. Let's take public comment on that motion real quick. Does anybody wish to speak in public comment on whether they'd like to see this item on a future agenda or against seeing this item on a future agenda? Okay.
Thank you. Marcia Ellis, thank you for the opportunity to speak on this. I have participated with a number of the Resilient Task Force meetings and branch meetings and have a pretty good assessment of the interplay. And there have been some staff presentations at some of those meetings as well as consultants that are associated with Lee County leading some of that. I'm really happy to see that there is a call for there more community planning, because the public should be given legal consideration. They should have an opportunity to bring forth their consideration, their interest, point out adverse impacts that could affect them, as well as look for modification in real time on these planning documents. So I think that it's really important and that it be brought forth as an opportunity in good faith, because you have a sophisticated public. We have a long history in this county of citizen science, for instance, and this is one of those instances where I think that that can go a long way to inform. You have very, very bright members of the community that want to be involved and give their input going forward, and so I see this as a great opportunity. What I don't want to see is sort of what I alluded to with item 13, is a misapplication of something like an OSHA document to the operation of a brick paver operation, just to make it a more business-friendly climate, or deregulation, making it easier and weighted more heavily towards development, and not really looking at those community characters or the architectural elements that we all take pride in our individual communities. So I welcome this blue sheet. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, any further comments? Yes, please, Ms. Brubaker.
Thank you, Sophia Brubaker, Sunshine Village Secretary. I hope I'm not out of order, and I'd like to say at this time, thank you, Commissioner Rain, for opening this up again and keeping it on the table. I have a feeling that these efforts will perhaps allow the unincorporated neighborhood plan update to include Iona, which is a historic area of Fort Myers. Sunshine in particular being 50 years old, we feel like we're the Mayflowers, because in Florida, that's old. So thank you for keeping this on the table.
There you go. Any further comments? All right, seeing no further comments, we'll come back to the board then. Any further discussion then?
While we're talking
Commissioner
about planning
Pendergrass.
panels, Richard, I'm calling you real quick. You were here at the very beginning. We had to deal with this before years ago when we had these planning panels in place, and I understand everybody wants to recover, but it's really separate. Can you give us a little bit of background on legally what can and we cannot do, and what the people, I think people looking at recovery as far as like how the community will look like, and how the jurisdiction wise, Fort Myers Beach, where obviously we want to see the change of Fort Myers Beach, that they have their own zoning, land use, they're going to make their own identity. How this affects us countywide, and a little history of what happened with Pine Island and the litigation that cost the Lee County taxpayers based upon the board allowing the outreach from the citizenry, self-appointed, to come in and set policy that cost us millions of dollars.
You're recognized, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Wow.
Commissioners, in the past, this county has had a long history of litigation that has ensued by virtue of the community planning process that perhaps, and I use that in a planning sense without regard to resiliency issues or hurricane disaster recovery. From a pure planning perspective, in the past, I think in many respects, both the staff and past boards deferred and perhaps gave too much deference to the community planning process, in the sense that it was by and large a wish list of residents that existed at the time those meetings were being held. I think there was a bit of a failure both on the part of community planning and, quite frankly, the county attorney's office at the time, that we did not get more involved in tempering those plans and balancing those limited desires with the private property rights that were at stake. As late as 2013, this county was facing approximately $260 million in possible litigation expenses by virtue of private property actions that were pending against it, largely as a result of that community planning process. So I'm happy to hear that the board is going to entertain a greater interaction with the community planning process, if that's the term we're using currently. As I understand the task force and its obligations, it is to identify resiliency type issues and prepare this county, or try and limit the exposure of this county to future disaster expenses, both in terms of life and property. It's when we get into that heavy mixture of planning without a balance being struck between community desires and private property rights that we run into a problem.
Right. And I'm just trying to bring it up to inform the board members who didn't deal with that a few years ago, because as this goes forward, if there's approval to bring this back, we should be prepared. The people that are looking to make money or control those special interest groups, they will be here in the future. We've seen that happen recently. We agreed to do something. We agreed to do something in good faith, and they will be back here at the next meeting. So there'll be the money, the extra $5 million will be on the table, and the ability to come into the community and say, we want our community to look like this. We want our neighbor's house look like this. This is what they're going to try to use to the, I was trying to make sure we know what we're voting for, because I see deja vu is coming back again, what we dealt with years ago with the litigation. And it's just really painful that people, unfortunately, I saw it last month on the Captiva when I had people asking, people who are self-appointed, asking if they agree with something, and they don't have a vote, and they're self-appointed themselves to something. So when you do that, what happens, they will combat, and they will hear, and we will listen to them, and we're gonna have to make the decision. Either we say yes or no, and you stamp to your values that when you run for office, are you gonna stand up for that, or are you gonna basically fall over for that? So I'm gonna stop talking right now before I say anything else.
I appreciate your comment. Commissioner Greenwald? Yeah, I just want, on those lawsuits back, history, if we're not careful, has a tendency to repeat itself. Those lawsuits back then, did we lose and have to pay a lot of money out as a county for allowing outside interest groups to cost people their rights? Is that what happened back then?
Mr. Chairman?
You're recognized.
As a global effort to resolve those litigations, we use many tools. Some of those tools involved transferring density, voluntary acquisition of properties, as well as the conversion of, say, mining properties into residential development areas. And some of the developments you see in Southeast Lee County are a direct result of the board allowing us as a staff, and then the board concurring to have that density swap take place. So it was a combination of those tools that we've utilized to avoid the payout of multi-million-dollar judgments. We also had a very receptive development community in the sense that they were willing to work with us in terms of alternative dispute resolution, as opposed to just straight litigation in the court system.
Let me ask one more.
Yeah, Commissioner.
So to sum that up, if we take people's property rights away, the county's being opened up to litigation.
Mr. Chairman?
You're recognized, yeah.
Florida is unique in the sense that we have not only federal takings law to abide by, state takings law to abide by, but we also have the Burt J. Harris Private Property Rights Act. And I think it's a fair statement to say that the Burt J. Harris Private Property Rights Act is the one that causes the most potential exposure for the county, because it lowers the bar for a court to determine that the county has gone too far in a regulatory aspect. That's why we continuously strive to work with your staff as well as you all to achieve that balance, so that we do not put the county in a position that we are opened up to either a takings claim under federal or state constitutional law, or the Burt J. Harris Private Property Rights Act.
If I could, Mr. Greenwald's question was two-part of the attorney, was how that all happened. And it basically, what happened is myself and Commissioner Kiker at the time got elected, and Commissioner Judah, he replaced Commissioner Judah, who at the time, is, we all know, the rest of the story, that claimed as a Republican, sat here and set policy and directed staff to have citizens direct staff instead of the board direct staff. And over time, that's what happened with the county attorney's office, the county manager's office, was citizenry was driving and directing staff. And that's what I don't want to see. What happens, you put people in the position, you self-appoint them and say, do this for me because I want to favor back. I want you to do the change policy. We have to be put in the middle then. And we had to come in here 10 years ago and change policy to get us out of those holes of the lawsuits, because they were allowed staff under the cover of being a Republican, Trudeau did, and we had hundreds of $1 million litigation. And thank goodness we had Richard and Roger and Dave and staff to make sure to get us through that. And we lost a lot of county staff over it because staff was following that train. They were on that ship in itself. So that's my concern.
Okay, Commissioner Ruane, you're recognized.
Sure. I don't want to convolute this at all between personal property rights. We had an issue just a couple of weeks ago on personal property rights that certainly one of us couldn't participate in. So I understand what our personal property rights are, and I'm not going to do anything other than protect personal property rights up here. So let's not make this ambiguous and not make this convoluted. This is about recovery. This is about resiliency. When you cross over on recovery and resiliency and you dress it up and you start to do land development code changes, when it comes to density, it has nothing to do with resiliency. My engagement was no different than any other time that we do so. The recovery that we went through in Tallahassee this past year, we got hundreds of millions of dollars. You all appointed me the opportunity, and quite frankly, I'm okay if we all want to participate. I'd use all the help in the world going to Tallahassee. We collected hundreds of millions of dollars because I can tell you it's a long, long process of doing so. And whether it was tolls, whether it was bridges, whether it was street signs or stop signs, revenue replacement, you name it, we received it. And honestly, that's what my focus has been. Not trying to change the land development code to try to have something other than it's more resilient. Not trying to do anything other than that. But when you want to dress it up, and the Captiva issue was dressed up as a resilient issue. The motion was prepared by the attorney's office about resiliency. Density has nothing to do with resiliency. And density has been changed, and that's why the people are upset. So let's not convolute the two situations. And I, as a business person, for 30 plus years have run multiple entities. I know what legal costs are, and I certainly am more than aware of wasting legal dollars. And that's not anything I will do. I just need that clarified because honestly, this conversation is going in directions that's not accurate, nor is it anything other than fictional.
So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and call the question on the motion that's on the floor about the blue sheet for the future meeting. So are there any objections to the motion on the floor?
Aye.
Okay. The motion carries then 4-1 with Commissioner Pendergrass objecting. So there you go. I assume you'll.
If I heard Commissioner Pendergrass said we should get a workshop as soon as possible, I'd welcome a workshop, really would, on this issue and all the items associated with it. We could also start to look at responsibilities and have it more of a team environment instead of feeling like it's not. I'm all for that.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I agree with you. I think what we're trying to do is make sure we don't get the two, together, that the resiliency thing and the work you're doing is great, but we just got to make sure that we're not crossing over. And it seems to be that we're talking about the land development codes and all that instead of actually resiliency. So I think I would love for us to have future discussions about this. So we definitely, I feel like, need to have, some discussion. So hope we.
Commissioner Greenwell, I just want to make sure the resiliency issue that I wanted to achieve with the task force had nothing to do with density. And that's where it got convoluted. And I wasn't the one that brought up density and Captiva at all. So just want to clarify for the record, that wasn't me. And I've never tried to do anything other than deal with resiliency on that motion that way it was made. I just need that clarified.
Any other comments or questions then? So real quick, I do want to add to that conversation about a workshop on the task force. I think that's a great idea. I think it's a good time because the task force has been meeting for a great period of time. Now with the action plan being put out and that being reviewed, I realize that's different than the long-term recovery task force plan. There'll be two separate documents, but I think it's a great time for us to get together and talk about the process so far. What have the branches been meeting about? Who are, the branches and even talk about, collectively, as a group, talking about just, do we like the process? Do we like the way it's going and all that kind of stuff, and be able to give that feedback, but in a more casual, less formal kind of way. Like you said, talk about it as a team.
I'd welcome that, Commissioner, quite frankly, and the engagement, if nothing else, was required for the $1.1 billion that was awarded to us. So anytime there's an opportunity, 5 heads are better than 1.
Yeah.
5 people advocating up in Tallahassee, I'd prefer instead of 1. So I'm open to whatever help and assistance. I recognize this is too big of a burden in recovering, and I certainly look to any type of input whatsoever.
I think that'd be, so Mr. Harner, County Manager, when could we look to set something like that up by? It sounds like it needs to be probably sooner than later.
We could, depending on the next workshop. Tonight, we have the draft on the agenda. We also have the third draft on, I believe, what day is that? 15th. We could also do it on the 15th as a second part of a workshop.
Commissioners, are you okay with that? It might be a little longer workshop, but.
Sure.
Okay.
So the motion is to have a workshop to discuss. So is that, do you need direction about how to involve staff involvement so they actually can give us feedback so we know what's going on? You have that direction as far as having staff involved with the task force?
I think.
Is there a consensus for the board to have staff involved with the task force?
I'd love to see a meeting to cover soup to nuts.
Yeah.
Where we are in the recovery, what we need to do, what type of aspects we work towards, what staff needs to do, what plan we have to submit to obviously adhere to HUD, everything from soup to nuts. I'm not trying to limit it to a particular discussion. I'd welcome all the conversations, but staff has been working very closely. Staff's been helping put the plan together. So maybe it's great that, everybody be brought up to speed from point 1 to point 10 and anything in between.
So that kind of outlines the way to talk about it at the workshop. So what's the status? How did we get to where we're at? I would love to even have a moment to define what success looks like. What is the end game, right? What are we trying to accomplish with the long-term recovery task force? And so I love that. Begin with the end in mind and then work your way backwards to get there. And yeah, talk about what the staff involvement has been so far, what opportunities there are, if there are, to improve it. I think there's a good conversation that could be had. Anything else that you need from us in order to prepare that outline for the discussion?
No, I think we're good. I'll work with the Commissioner Chairman of the task force as well as Haggerty and the collaboratory.
And Glenn, right?
Yeah, Glenn. Our staff will be involved.
And real quick, Mr. County Attorney, do we need a motion or just to direct them to do a workshop? Is that something that can be done by consensus? I mean, it seems like we've got 5 people who are.
Consensus is fine, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. County Attorney. Commissioner
I wanna
Pendergrass, you're recognized.
Clarify for definition. When I say staff, I'm referring to Lee County staff, because I think what I've heard from your staff is either Haggerty or Collaboratory is doing all the work, and you guys, there's 2 separate trains going here. You guys are going this way, and they're all going this way. So I'm referring to staff, Lee County, our staff, Board of County Commissioner staff, working with the Haggerty and the Collaboratory staff. I understand everybody has a piece of the pie, everybody wants some of the money, but Lee County staff is our Lee County employees, and they should have the burden to put this together and bring back to the board. It's a board item. It's not an individual item. So that's when I refer to staff, I'm referring to Lee County staff.
Any further comments on that? Okay. Commissioner Ruane, I think you had another item or two.
I do. If I should.
Chair, I just want to make a clarification. I apologize.
That's okay.
I just want to make a clarification. Sorry. You're asking for staff, but we will need to work with the collaboratory and Haggerty. Thank you. Totally forgot who they were. So that we can make sure we get all those pieces in that they're doing as well. Because, as we stated, Glenn and his team are doing some things, Haggerty and the collaboratory are. So we just want to make sure that all that is included in this. I guess my question is, you want staff to present this workshop? Is that what we're talking about? You want staff to present it moving forward, or do you want all these groups in to talk about what they're actually doing?
I say we have staff do it.
Staff.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think we have had really a tremendous amount of success with the one org philosophy, right? It's all of us, regardless of what department we come from, pulling at the rope, the same time, the same way. I think there's an opportunity to increase that one org philosophy on this process as well. Let's bring everybody into the boat here and bring this plan home. Yeah. Okay, very good. Commissioner Ruane, your next item, please.
If I could ask John Lai from the chamber to come on up. Actually, John Lai actually requested this relief for Sanibel. They're obviously struggling with their recovery, and I thought it was a great idea, and I thought I'd brought it forward before and have John describe exactly what his request is.
Mr. Lai, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Chair Hammond and Commissioner Ruane. Back in July, I had sent an email to County Manager Harner and requesting toll abatement for 1 day a week as we recover through on the islands right now. Last month, we had two restaurants reopen, and that put us at 30 restaurants on island. As you all know, summer travel has been way down. And so we are running a Savor Sandcap campaign in addition to, or in collaboration with the VCB's Savor the Shore campaign that runs for 6 weeks. And so our request is simply that we get 1 day a week toll abatement to drive traffic to our islands. The VCB's done a great job. Their message goes from all the way from Bonita Beach all the way to Boca Grande. We'd like to try to capture some of that on San Miguel Captiva, and the toll abatement go a very long way.
Okay, very good. So is the request, when's the request to start this?
Like to start as soon as possible. So this weekend, if possible. I mean, last weekend would have been great. But just, if we can start it this weekend, it would give us 6 weeks. It would take us 2 weeks into September, right on the heels of the Island Hopper Songwriters Festival. Our restaurants and retailers have worked so hard to get reopened as quickly as they can. And our goal is to make sure that they are successful throughout this slow season, the summer season, so that we can see them on the other side for winter.
When is the Singer-Songwriter Festival? I should know that, but I don't. Okay, so we have some time.
So really perfectly timed.
Okay. Commissioner Ruane, this is your item, but I do have some comments I'd love to share.
Sure. I just obviously was trying to allow staff to facilitate this, so obviously it can be implemented properly and efficiently.
So Commissioner Ruane, my thought is I'm going to support it. I would love to see this again, since it has financial implications. I mean, we're talking about bridge tolls, right? So this is going to cost some money. I think it would be money well spent to help a community recover, help out business owners who, I think the entrepreneurs are some of the most amazing people in the world with the way they've tried to come back from this storm and serve their customers. And I applaud that, just literally pulling yourselves up by your bootstraps effort, right? And so I want to support it. I just think, again, here's another situation where, so there are financial implications. There's probably some backup on the logistics. If we could prepare this item for a blue sheet to come back on the 15th, we could vote for it on the 15th. And I think that still gives us a chance to cover that period of the Singer-Songwriter Festival and as much of the rest of August as we could. And so I think that would be how I would love to envision us, instead of, again, doing things on the fly at each meeting. Let's review it and vote on it like regular order, because we're not in this emergency anymore. I mean, we're almost a year out from the hurricane now. So.
Okay.
Well, you know, I'm one person, but that's.
No, listen, you know what? There's a community that's hurting. They're coming to us. 2 weeks means a lot. In the way this lines up, it'll run right into, if we do it the 15th of August, it'll run right into the Songwriters Festival, and that was not the intent.
My only concern, and I certainly understand your position on this, Chair Hammond, but we would like to try to capture as much of this rest of school being out for the summer as possible. And so this weekend and next would be crucial in capturing that. So once again, I understand your position on this, but.
Sure, I'll turn to the board at this time.
I had, my question was going to be to staff, what as far as toll revenues, how much loss we would probably estimate for the day? And I would support doing this in the future for the area to get more people out there. We need to get more people out on the islands to as businesses continue to open up. I saw some new ones open this week up on Sanibel. So it's nice to get some more people out there and to get more commerce out there. I'm just trying to make sure we do it fairly, because, you know, there's other toll bridges too, like Cape Coral, and is that going to come next based upon that? Let's see how we're looking, how it's going to affect our revenues for the bridges, that millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars bridges we have to build.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. Hunt.
Yes, just a little background. When we discussed these timeframes, the weekends typically have less traffic coming through. Thought it would be more important to do it on the weekend, a full day, as opposed to doing hours on a weekend, or, you know, over the whole weekend. So that was kind of our discussion, is to try to pick a day where the revenue obviously is low anyways, and hopefully draw more people over during the weekend, and to his point, when school's out. So I'll let Randy give you an update on how much that would actually be.
On that thing, I know we're talking about dates, schools being out, festivals and stuff. I just know also from being in the restaurant business myself, my family for years, September is the slowest month for restaurants. So if it goes from August to September, I know you're going to capture another audience there that is going to pull people to September, because I know that people in Sanibel and Captiva, the restaurants, September is the slowest month. So if it went from late of August to September, that's a benefit there. So no matter how you do it now or to August, it's going to be a benefit. Ready? Sorry.
Go ahead.
Good morning, Commissioners. This request came up a few days ago, so we looked at the exact time last year. And for Sundays, for a 6-week stretch, it would be about $180,000.
For 6 days?
Sundays, 6 consecutive Sundays.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Searchy.
Are we
Any further
bringing about
questions?
$30,000 a Sunday?
Pardon me?
We bringing about $30,000 a Sunday?
Yeah.
Okay. Surprise.
I would support bringing it back, as the chairman recommended, as a motion to our blue sheet to come back with the next meeting for that reason.
That wasn't my motion.
Oh, you have, was there a motion for? I'm sorry.
So, Commissioner Ruane, where?
I'm trying to give the relief in the period of time that they think is going to be the most effective. And honestly, the 2 weeks will just delay this further and going to run into September, which 6 weeks from August 15th runs you through September and you run into the Song Festival. So that wasn't my intent.
Don't want.
I was looking to do it now.
Yeah. So,
Into the Song Festival, because the Song Festival, you don't need to give them a break. They're going out to the island, so why would we try to do that? We're trying to promote a period of time where there's no activity, not during the more activity period of time. Yeah, I mean, what you're trying to do is help, during your slow periods, and obviously the Songwriters Festival is one that actually promotes people going out the island, spending money, going to look at bands, seeing whatever. So that is a catalyst to try to get more business there. I'm trying to obviously help the period of time where there's not as much of a demand and trying to create demand, and that might just be one vehicle. We've done it in the past when I certainly was on city council and had relief from the tolls during other economic downturns back in 07, 08.
So, I mean.
My motion would be now as opposed to 2 weeks from now, and I respect the blue sheet. I just think there's some urgency associated with the timing.
Okay, do we have a second for the motion?
His motion?
Yeah, his motion.
I will second it.
Okay, so motion from Commissioner Wayne, second from Commissioner Sandelli. Let me jump in here and just, I'll support the motion as well.
I'm not trying to round the system. Everything, we're in different times.
Yeah.
Urgency for everybody out there is important.
It's important, but I hope we can kind of come to a gentleman's agreement that we could get back to more of a regular order of proposing an item first as a commissioner item to be brought back then for a full vote at a future meeting. But Mr. Harner, I do want to also get an education real quick on the idea of a walk-on item. So obviously the agenda is going to get published and then things like this may come up after the agenda is published. Does somebody, maybe the county attorney would know as our parliamentarian, I'm not sure who to direct this one to. What is a commissioner's ability to bring forward something like this as a walk-on item so that at least there could be some sort of a blue sheet prepared instead of us not having really anything to look at? County attorney, maybe take a stab at
Your
that.
administrative code, there is a blue sheet process, and that is the process that you've outlined here today. However, since it's your administrative code, the board has the flexibility to not bind itself to it on a case basis. That's why in the past, when the board has acted on walk-on items, our office has not objected because we took that as a de facto waiver of your own rule of procedure, which you're empowered to do.
Okay, excellent.
Just one other comment. We're in unprecedented times, and when we talk about process, which is very important to us, we're looking for consistency across the board. Process to me translates into time, and time is critical. And so, that's why, again, not to go around the system, but be cognizant.
I think Commissioner Hammond, if we can get to what you're looking to do, is have it on a blue sheet, and when there's an item the commissioner indicates there's an emergency aspect of it, ask staff to try to give some additional documentation. She could appreciate that. You still have the ability as a commissioner to say yes or no, but if there's some urgency like this is, where there's some true economic impact that we're trying to help an area recover, the 2 weeks is really important to their recovery, and that's what I'm just indicating. So if we could just have a policy, we'll always adhere to that. If we have to deviate, you get all the necessary documentation, you work with county staff, you bring it, and you still have the right as a commissioner to say, you know what, I'd rather you come back to a blue sheet. I don't have enough information. I can't make a vote. I'd respect that process.
Commissioner Greenwell?
Yeah, Chairman. I feel that way also. I would love to see us, do the blue sheet as much as possible. I think that's very important to our process. But also, we had a major hurricane. We need to support Sanibel. It's a gym, obviously. I would, under these circumstances, if at all possible, and the staff is able to arrange it, to move that item as well. So I will second that because I do believe it's important that we work with our community and under the circumstances, the right thing to do.
For the minutes, though, it was Ruane and Sandelli for the second, but you got a third.
I'll third
There
it.
you go. And I'll fourth, and I imagine we'll get a fifth.
Yeah. I think this is a great thing we're doing for the businesses out there. My only question is we're doing it on the fly again here. And I'm glad John came forward and brought this forward to the commission. And thank you, John, for your group for thinking of this. But if we had more time to go through this, since there is share revenue from this, we're taking tolls away. Has anybody talked to the city of Sanibel to see their thoughts on this? Because I know John's here on behalf of the chamber, but we're the board, we're actually going to affect the toll revenues that Sanibel collects. So I'm not sure how much of that percentage of that they get. I think it's 40%.
The split's 2179. 21 Sanibel receives, Lee County receives 79% of the net tolls. And
So-
Sanibel's aware of this action.
Back to the process.
Talk to the mayor.
You're not mayor anymore, so thank you though, but we know that. But my thing is, they may talk to the city of Sanibel about they're okay with this. I'm sure they're okay with it because it's going to help all the businesses. But I'm just saying that.
Just for clarity for the record, I did talk to Mayor Richard Johnson about this and he obviously embraced this.
Great, thank you. It'd been nice to have public
All
comment.
right, let's call the question. Are there any objections to the motion? All right, I see no objections, then that motion carries unanimously. Congratulations. We'll look forward to seeing a lot of folks out there supporting Sanibel businesses. All right.
No other items.
No other items. Okay, very good. Commissioners, I have one last item under commissioner items to bring up. The Florida Association of Counties sent me a letter that the board of directors position for our county is vacant. I had served in that position for the last couple of years. Unfortunately, I missed this last annual conference, and apparently there was nobody there to vote for themselves to be the position on the board of directors. And so if there are no objections, I'll appoint myself back into the position and make it back to the future conference. Okay, very good. I see no objections then, so I'll just move forward as the letter instructs and appoint myself to that. All right, I think that concludes commissioner items. Let's move on to committee appointees, appointments rather. Commissioner Greenwell, you have any appointments?
I do. A reappointment of Ian Moore to Executive Regulatory Oversight Committee. Also a reappointment for Veronica Martin to Land Development Code Committee. Also a reappointment for Al Quadrone to Land Development Code Committee.
All right, so motion from Commissioner Greenwell, second from Commissioner Pendergrass. Any discussion, any objection? No objection, that motion carries unanimously. Commissioner Pendergrass?
Yeah, some reappointments and new ones. New appointment David Galler of the EROC, reappointment Victor Dupont of EROC, reappointment Christopher Scott for Land Development Code, and reappointment Randy Chris to Land Development Code.
Okay, motion from Commissioner Pendergrass, second from Commissioner Sandelli. Any further discussion? Any objection? No objection, that motion carries unanimously. Commissioner Sandelli.
I have three reappointments, all to the Land Development Code, William Pricey, Linda Stewart, and Patrick Vanessa.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Sandelli, second from Commissioner Ruane. Do we have any discussion? Any objection? No objection, motion carries unanimously. And Commissioner Ruane.
I have several appointments. Parks and Rec, I have an appointment for John Bodnar. Gasparilla Inn, appointment for Richard Kosoff. Land Development Code, Jay Johnson, Gerard Pennant, and Paula McMichael. And then last, Housing Finance Authority of the reappointment of Virginia Yates.
We have a motion from Commissioner Wayne. Do we have a second? Second from Commissioner Sandelli. Did Pendergrass beat you on that one?
Doesn't matter.
That was very good. Any discussion? Are there any objections? No objections. That motion carries unanimously. All right, I have one new appointment and two reappointments to make, commissioners. I'll need a motion and a second. I'd like to make an appointment of Liston Boucher to the Tourist Development Council as an ex officio non-voting municipal officer. Thomas Leonard, reappointing him to the Land Development Code Committee, and Jennifer Sapin, reappointing her to the Land Development Code Committee.
I'll make the motion.
Motion from Commissioner Wayne, second from Commissioner Greenwell. Any discussion? Any objection? No objection. Motion carries unanimously. All right. Any, I guess that concludes Commissioner appointments. County manager items. Mr. Harner, your first county manager items.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We originally had the board strategic workshop or planning workshop scheduled for June 22nd. we had deferred that. I would like to bring it back to talk about potentially putting it on for late October, early November. That'll allow us to get through the budget process. Also, it'll allow us to work with you on what you would like to see happening with the planning session and also work to get a facilitator.
Very good. Are you asking for any objections to that, or?
Just if you all agree to that, we'll work on that.
Sounds like a solid plan.
Okay.
Very good. Anything else?
No, that's all I have. Thank you.
Nothing further. We'll move to the county attorney.
Nothing for your consideration today, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. County Attorney, we'll move at this time to public presentation of matters by citizens. The first speaker, I have several cards that have been turned in today for this, is Joe Sansone, followed by Bob Valenta. All right. Good morning.
How you doing? I'm Dr. Joseph Sansone. I'm a psychotherapist opposed to psychopathic authoritarianism. And I'm here today to talk to you about these COVID-19 injections and the mRNA biological weapons nanoparticle